When I was a teenager back in the 1970s, unlike my friends who had posters of pop stars on their bedroom walls, I adopted for Alphonse Mucha's Job poster, which I considered then, and still consider now, to be beautiful. I have recreated the effect on my bright and garish yellow floral wallpaper for you here. This was an advertisement created in 1896 for the Joseph Bardou, that is to say, the Job company, who manufactured cigarette papers, and it gave rise to the trend of the Mucha woman. Mucha was born in 1860 in the Moravian town of Ivančice, in what is now the Czech Republic. His father worked as a court usher, and he and his siblings lived modestly. From childhood, Mucha showed strong artistic ability as well as musical talent, especially singing. Religion and spirituality were important influences during his early life, and the atmosphere of Catholic ritual and symbolism later shaped the mystical quality of much of his art. When he was 19 years old, he was rejected by the Prague Academy of Fine Arts and spent his early 20s painting theatre scenery and decorative murals. Aged 25, he secured a place at the Munich Academy of Fine Arts, transferring to the Académie Julian and Académie Colarossi in Paris a couple of years later, where he studied while working as an illustrator to support himself. At the time, Paris was the artistic capital of Europe, a city alive with cafés, theatres, exhibitions and creative experimentation. When he was 34 years old, a printing company urgently needed a poster for the famous actress Sarah Bernhardt and her new play Gismonda. Mucha happened to be available during the Christmas holidays and accepted the commission. The resulting poster transformed his career overnight. Unlike the bold, crowded advertisements which were common at the time, Mucha's design was tall, elegant and sophisticated. Bernhardt appeared almost like a saint or Byzantine empress, surrounded by delicate ornament, floral motifs and flowing drapery. The muted colours and graceful lines stopped people in the streets of Paris. The poster became an instant sensation, and Sarah Bernhardt immediately offered Mucha a long-term contract. From that moment, Mucha became one of the leading artists of the Art Nouveau movement. Unlike some artists of the Parisian avant-garde, he was a modest man and avoided scandalous bohemian lifestyles. He was known for being courteous, reflective and deeply patriotic towards his Czech homeland. Friends described him as determined, polite and highly disciplined. Even during periods of financial hardship in Paris, he reportedly maintained an almost monastic dedication to work. Spiritually, Mucha was deeply interested in mysticism, symbolism and philosophy. He was associated with Freemasonry and believed art had the power to elevate humanity, morally and spiritually. Many of his works reflect this fascination with transcendence, symbolism and sacred beauty. Mucha believed art should not only exist in galleries or museums. He wanted beauty to become part of everyday life. For him, graphic and commercial designs, packaging, advertisements, calendars, menus, magazine covers and book illustrations were just as meaningful as traditional fine art. This philosophy perfectly reflected the ideals of Art Nouveau, which sought to unite art, craftsmanship and modern living. Over a lifetime, he worked across a broad range of media, including drawing and illustration, using pencil, ink and charcoal. This formed the basis for many of his commercial and fine art works. Watercolour. He often used watercolour and gouache for preparatory studies and decorative designs. Photography. This was also used as a reference for poses, drapery and composition. Typography. He designed ornamental fonts, borders and entire book layouts. He designed Art Nouveau jewellery in collaboration with the jeweller Georges Fouquet. He designed stained glass windows, notably that at St. Vitus Cathedral in Prague. Painting, including oils, tempera and mixed media on canvas for murals and decorative panels intended for interiors. And lithography, especially for his iconic posters. Notable works include The Seasons, Zodiac, Job, and numerous theatre posters and advertisements. When he was 37 years old, he hosted a major solo exhibition in Paris, showcasing posters, decorative arts and illustrations. And then a few years later, he contributed decorative work to the Great International Exhibition in Paris. When he was 44 years old, he travelled to the United States seeking support for large-scale artistic and national projects. During this time, he lectured and taught art, painted portraits and received commissions, but he remained emotionally tied to Europe and Slavic culture. He believed strongly that art should serve national identity and spiritual values. Aged 46, he married Mariška Hytilova, a Czech woman more than 20 years his junior. The marriage appears to have been affectionate and stable, and they had 2 children. His family life became increasingly important to Mucha during his later years, especially as he moved away from the commercial art world of Paris. When he was 50 years old, he returned permanently to his native Czech lands and settled in Prague, where he increasingly devoted himself to national and historic themes. For 18 years, he painted the Slav Epic, 20 enormous canvases depicting Slavic history and mythology, the project he considered his life's work. He donated the Slav Epic to Prague on the understanding that a permanent building would be created to house them, which never came to pass, although these monumental pictures have been exhibited at various museums and galleries. With the advent of World War I and modernism, Art Nouveau fell from fashion, although Mucha remained respected in his homeland. After the war, Czechoslovakia was created, after the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Mucha enthusiastically designed banknotes, postage stamps and official documents for the new Czech nation. Later, in 1939, following the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia, Mucha was arrested and interrogated by the Gestapo for several days because of his nationalist activities and prominence. Although he was released, the experience severely damaged his health, and he died in Prague later that year at the age of 78, officially of pneumonia. Today, Alphonse Mucha is celebrated as one of the great masters of decorative art. His influence can still be seen in illustration, graphic design, fashion, fantasy art and contemporary visual culture. More than a century later, his work continues to enchant audiences with its elegance, harmony and celebration of beauty. Alphonse Mucha transformed decoration into art and proved that beauty could exist everywhere in everyday life.